Welcome to Inside Auto Podcast, where we feature everyone and anyone you'd want to talk to in and out of the automotive industry.
Ilana Shabtai here, host of Inside Auto Podcast, where we interview top dealers, GM, marketers, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in and out of the automotive industry. And before we introduce today's guest, this episode is sponsored by AutoLeadStar.com. The AutoLeadStar platform is built on a technology so powerful it allows you to market, sell, and service cars as you would in the real world and online, making one-to-one matches between shoppers and inventory. AutoLeadStar is the only platform that is powered by scale, speed, and specificity to change the way dealers do marketing today. Today's guest is Lara Keyes, which I was so excited to have Lara here on the call with us today. How are you doing?
Hi, Lana. I'm great. Thank you. How are you? Thank you for having me. It's so amazing.
Of course. Before we jump into our content here, I'll give you a quick intro. Lara studied consumer behavior and retail management and worked in the fashion industry for 10 years, which is fascinating. Her expertise lies in brand management and growth, specifically when it comes to digital. Lara is passionate about tracking consumer behavior and changes and how to retain consumers through loyalty. Lara joined Automotive 3 years ago at Dealer Marketing Magazine, where she is now, and she is the digital editor at the magazine. She is the mastermind behind the relaunch of Dealer Marketing Magazine and the expert panel, which has created such a big community. So we're really excited to talk about that today, and I'm excited for the world to know who she is. So thank you again for joining us.
Hello, world.
Hello, world. Well, I know I gave you a brief bio, and we kind of talked about your transition into automotive, but it's a podcast, an Inside Auto podcast tradition to ask our guests how you actually fell into automotive. Tell us a little bit more about your background and how you came into automotive, and then of course how your background applies to your work at Dealer Marketing Magazine.
Yeah, so you already gave quite an introduction there, but as you heard, my main passion is behind the consumer behavior side. And I left the fashion industry because I got tired of designing for other people. And I decided to focus and go more into the digital marketing direction. And an American friend of mine told me the one day, hey, I bought a magazine. I was like, what? And that was marketing. And I thought he was crazy because he was in a different industry as well, but he comes from the tech side. And said, well, that's really interesting because it's about marketing and all these things. And as we started talking, the one day he just said, hey, do you want to work with me on this? And I was very scared to leave my industry for this, but I've just loved the change and I'm super passionate about it. Yeah, I'm honored to be in a position to rebuild dealer marketing for the tech future and to be recognized in automotive. And I'm super passionate about data and AI and marketing and PR and branding. And I love that I'm able to share this with other people.
Well, your friend is probably super happy that he decided to make that move, or he or she decided to make that move because you've really made an impact on the magazine. Were you in the States at this time?
Yes, I was in Florida at the time.
Cool.
Yeah.
We don't know if we're ever going to get you back, though. Are we going to get you?
Once the pandemic is over, it was, yeah. I really, I came back and then just got stuck, and here I am now. But I'm excited to go back, definitely, once things are back to normal, whenever that will be.
I know, I hope soon. It feels like by 2022, we'll be like maybe 80% of the way there. So maybe we'll get you back in the new year. We'll see.
Yeah, I think so.
But you see, I mean, again, you built this amazing expert panel, which I'm really honored to participate in. And I feel so grateful that I get to be on this panel with so many other experts in the industry. And you see a lot of content that we put out, and you review that content, you edit the content. What are some of the trends in automotive that you see that are most exciting to you? Whether that's from the content or not, I just kind of put it in that context because I know you live and breathe that at Dealer Marketing Magazine.
It definitely does come from the content because our expert panel, which I'll talk about more soon, those are the masterminds behind our content. But there's been so many exciting changes that are happening in the automotive industry right now, which has been catapulted by this pandemic we face. And for me, the most exciting has to be the digital retailing trend, and all the new emerging markets that we're seeing coming from this. And research shows that more and more of the car buying customer journey is spent online, with nearly 95% of car buyers using digital as a source of information. So, and these buyers are, according to research, spending 61% of their time online when shopping for a vehicle, which significantly shortens the purchase horizon. So yeah, over 2/3 of US customers now spend less than 3 months to research their vehicle purchase. And with car shoppers that have easier access to the information they need, you can naturally expect that they would need less time before putting pen to paper.
Right.
So with so many aspects to selling a car, creating an online experience to match this changing buying process and traditional showroom is a true challenge for dealers, especially when customers are already getting a seamless online shopping experience with other businesses like banking and groceries and things. So there's definitely very, very, very high expectations. And dealers, they've had to implement at-home delivery programs and build better websites and find ways to help customers tour their showrooms virtually, which we all knew was coming probably, but I don't think they expected to get it up and running now. I recently listened to a very interesting podcast with Roll Paul, the Real Vision CEO and co-founder, on their latest campaign, Welcome to the Exponential Age. And the fact is that cars are about to go exponential, and anybody who advances in technology in autonomous vehicles and other parts of the EV revolution will be on the front foot. VW's global head of innovation has also confirmed that the rate of change that's being forced on the car industry right now is unbelievable. Yeah. And scary fact that the vehicle fleet are going to be replaced over the next 20 years, and they actually want to speed that up. So at every level, the car industry is reinventing itself as always, and there will be winners and there will be losers during this transformation. And the digital retail tools and AI that's available to support this change in customer expectations is really, really interesting. There was also a global automotive consumer study done by Deloitte Global, which showed results that a high number of consumers felt that the overall purchase experience took too long and that there's too much paperwork. This was before the pandemic. So these main issues, I think, could certainly be solved with clever technology to create a more seamless experience. The upside to the online buying experience is that there's so much data that can be collected and leveraged to develop new business models. It's clear that dealers need to really focus on integrating that data and channels available to deliver a more enhanced customer experience. And designing new service models will require more insight and analytics than ever before. The other interesting trend is the future of mobility, which will be more dynamic as other forms of transportation, such as autonomous and electric shuttles, e-bikes, those things become in demand. And dealers will need to find ways to have more personalized and inclusive options to support these transformations. There's a duality concept of what the future is, which entails both autonomous and sharing vehicles, but the issue that needs the greatest attention right now that we are seeing is how can dealers get to know their customers well so that they can meet their needs and expectations and deliver a great customer experience. Through the adoption of a digital and smarter approach, they will certainly increase their competitive advantage and create a path for long-term customer loyalty, which is the ultimate goal, which should be the ultimate goal. I also really like put it in perspective, the example of Amazon, who are the absolute experts at leveraging customer behavior data and creating personalized offers and recommendations. And dealers and OEMs need to follow that route and start thinking beyond the transaction and consider all their customers' behaviors to improve this digital journey that we find ourselves on, and ultimately get closer to the customer through data and insights.
I think there's so much there that you mentioned, and I think the overall theme is that dealers need to be ready for whatever the future of mobility is. And I think, like, again, you shared a lot of different trends, but I think the overall theme between all of them is consumers changed and they're going to change, and dealers absolutely need to equip themselves for that change and respond to that change, and technology is the way that they can respond to it. And I think that's on the money.
Absolutely. It's such a competitive industry, and if you are not ahead on what's happening right now, you're going to fall behind.
Yeah.
It's very evident.
Now, just for my own curiosity, is the automotive industry similar in South Africa, or is it totally
very
different?
behind, so far behind? And I think that's also what's quite interesting, is they don't have all this technology, and they're still doing things very traditionally.
Oh, and it's working for now.
Yeah, it's working for now. How long for? I don't know. They should really probably start looking at leading countries like the States in terms of how they are changing their retail practices and processes.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in automotive in like a totally post-COVID world, but also with I know you mentioned EVs, with the emerging EV models. I think I heard from Google yesterday that it was something like 10%, if not more. I don't remember the amount, but it was a very high percentage of new models coming out in 2022 were EVs. And so eventually we're just going to be seeing a totally different world of transportation, and it's going to be crazy. Like, how I can't imagine a world without gas stations. Like, yeah, it's nuts. But I guess you kind of just replace that concept with charging stations. I don't know. I guess it's the same thing, right? It's like, oh, I got to get gas. Oh, I got to charge my car. I don't know. We'll see what it's going to be like.
Yeah, it's going to, I think one of the whole dealership parking lot and the whole setup is going to change a lot, because you're going to have these charging stations. Your servicing is going to have to be completely different.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I don't know if dealers are really thinking about all of that as much as they should. Yeah. I think it's going to come faster than what they think.
Yeah, so that's a good tip here for our listeners. If you're not prepared for everything that Lara just mentioned, please also prepare yourself for the change in market that's to come in the next couple of years. But I know we mentioned this already, that a lot of these trends that you learn come from the magazine. So, I mean, just tell us a little bit about how the magazine supports these trends or talks about these trends, and how you're kind of setting that up to educate dealers, because I know that's something that's very important to you.
Yeah, so as we already mentioned, the industry's been going through all these changes from a technical and a consumer behavior point. And our goal is really to help dealers understand these changes better. Mm-hmm. And the pace and the impact of these changes call for dealers to gear up and embrace for the future of automotive. Future is now, essentially.
Yep.
And with so many options at car shoppers' fingertips, customer experience professionals face increased pressure to design a positive, informative, and memorable experience that's going to drive these shoppers into their dealerships and turn them into loyal, long-time brand advocates. So the big question
you're very passionate about, right? You said, I know you mentioned that you're really passionate about like the customer journey, but specifically the loyalty and how to retain customers.
Yes. You know, there's so much work that goes into building a brand, and sometimes people don't put in strategies in place to build those loyal brand advocates, because then all the work you put in just goes away.
Right.
So how that gets done is tricky. And that's the big question, is what is the key to designing these experiences? And no one has the answers, which is exciting. Mm-hmm. But people need to be on top of what's going on, and they need to be willing to improve their business models and processes through this digital transformation, whether it's mobility or F&I or digital retailing. The list goes on, but dealers need to know their customers inside out, wherever they are in the customer journey. And there has to be a very strong commitment from everyone in the whole dealership to embrace the transformation and to maintain that journey. I think the big challenge here lies in identifying the right tools and partners which will have a positive impact on the customer journey, which is always changing. Mm-hmm. And this is where we come in. So our online publication speaks to a large online audience of dealers and vendors in the automotive industry. And we aim to give dealers a lens between the consumer and the dealer through providing useful best practices, commentary, and insights, as well as the latest research. We focus on editorial content that's written by automotive professionals to educate and enlighten dealers using how-to and thought-out leadership articles. And our biggest shift as the magazine has been to transform to fully digital to provide dealers with expert knowledge at their fingertips wherever they are.
I think that's great. And I know this is actually a good transition to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the expert panel. I know we've mentioned it a couple of times, but I'd love for you to speak a little bit about the concept behind it, because you really did build it from scratch, and you did a phenomenal job. And there really is a sense of community, and we haven't even met each other, but we always, I'll get LinkedIn messages from someone who says like, hey, I saw you were on the expert panel with me, excited to connect, which is just such a good feeling, and you should feel really good about that. So tell us a little bit about the concept behind it, and if you have any efforts for expansion.
Yeah, so we're super proud that even in the printed magazine version, we've always featured some of the brightest minds in the industry to share their thoughts and leadership. And starting Dealer Marketing's new journey, we decided to establish a 30-seat expert panel, which was our first major change when taking over. And it's been received, as you say, really, really well. We started with a list of 800 industry professionals.
Wow.
And from there, we founded the first members, and we basically do a scoring of all sorts of things, company for the experience. We're very strict, though, that we only allow people who are automotive industry professionals to provide our content. And when a seat becomes available now, we just put a request out for nomination, which is always exciting to see what comes in.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and at this point, we're not really looking to increase the number of available seats, but you never know what's going to happen. We don't want to have too many because we want to be able to give every piece the right exposure that it deserves, because it really is quality work that we get. And we believe that partnering with industry experts who are professionals on these topics is the best way to provide dealers with value. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So it's been an amazing bonus with all the new connections and relationships that have been created amongst the panel. To be honest, I don't think we didn't build it for that reason, but we've always had a vision to have this expert community, and it's really becoming alive now with our whole podcast channel or podcast partnerships, and everyone speaking to each other. And we definitely want to work on having a webinar series in the future to put more focus on our experts and have them co-host and talk about all sorts of fun things.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm learning new things about what's to come too. So I know, so you are working on a lot of exciting things for the magazine, not just within the expert panel, but there's some other stuff that you're working on. Anything you could share with us?
Yeah, so over the last year, we've been focused on beefing up our content and giving more value to dealers. We've reorganized our content to be focused on the customer journey and the dealership business specifically. And as I said, we've partnered with mostly automotive marketing, Xperia marketing, and we're also featuring the Inside Auto podcast, where our experts feature to discuss their latest article in more depth. We've built a new website, which is very exciting and will be up in no time.
Which is really exciting. I'll share the secret that I saw a little sneak peek before we started this podcast episode, and it looks amazing. It really does. So I'm super excited about that. Obviously, I didn't get to see it all, just so that there's like there's no unfair advantage here. It does look great. It really does.
Thank you. We're very, very excited. We've built it from scratch. Our expert panel will also get value out of it through a portal for them, and be connected to each other. And thereafter, we are going to just rev up the opportunities for vendors and event organizers to reach our audience and relaunch our industry awards section.
No way. I remember that. We actually won an award. I think it was like the first award we ever won. So dealer marketing has a very sweet spot in our hearts. Yeah. Well, Automotive was a very young company at the time, but yes, we won our product Falcon, which we rebranded since then. Did win, and we even still have like this beautiful glass award. Oh, I'm so excited you're bringing that back.
Yeah, that's gonna take some time, but it's definitely on the cards. We started working on it already, creating some new awards.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we're very excited about that. We're always looking to get better, and we really look forward to improving this digital platform to be a knowledge hub for everyone in the industry, and to connect everyone and share ideas and knowledge.
Well, I love it. Lara, thank you so much for joining us and for coming out to tell us all of the work that you do, usually behind the scenes. So I'm so happy that we can get you out in the world, like we said in the beginning of the episode. So thanks so much for joining. It was great to have you, great to learn from you. For anyone who is not subscribed to Dealer Marketing Magazine, please do dealermarketingmagazine.com. We'll also link it out in the show notes. And for our listeners, if you like this episode, please tune in Inside Auto Podcast, insideautopodcast.com. You can also find us on all mainstream apps, iHeart, Apple, Spotify. We'll catch you next time. Thank you so much, Lara.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Inside Auto Podcast. Check out our other episodes with top entrepreneurs and industry leaders.